Setting aside that, I mean, I think if you have free exchange and you have open competition, then those large accumulations of capital would have a hard time establishing themselves. I think I mean, and that's one of the things that capitalists in the United States ran into, especially in the 1900s, was they were trying to set up these trusts and they were trying to have these long-term large corporations, and what they ran into was that you'd have all these small startups come in and they would outcompete the large companies and the trusts, and so I mean they would just keep undercutting themselves, and so they had to create all these laws and regulations that would restrict competition because they couldn't maintain these large accumulations of capital without it.
That's sort of, I think that's a maturest analysis. When Julian Assange was being interviewed and they were trying to hedge him into the corner of anti-capitalism, he brought up some really good points of markets working.
Right.
And that's what that's his distinction. That's the most mature one I've heard, is that I believe in markets and I believe in competition.
Right.
And I don't believe in capitalism as it's currently practiced. But like the idea behind it. And then he brought up some like good examples, which like I'm not well versed in, but like there are examples that markets actually work and competition works, and what you just brought up too.
Yeah.
So it's like a deeper discussion of just like pro anti-capitalism.
And it's even something I saw come up on David Graeber's Twitter. He was talking about, like, I don't know who he was arguing with or what, but it just ran up on our feed. Was that he's like, well, because I mean part of the anti-capitalist analysis is that in order to push people into these wage labor situations, you need to have them impoverished to such a degree that they need to do it. Otherwise, part of the history he lays out is that the earliest examples of what look like wage labor that we can find are renting slaves by the day, and so how do you put people in these desperate situations that they wouldn't, or that free people ordinarily wouldn't go into? And so his argument there was, well, I mean, how are you going to do that if we've got these collectives where people's day-to-day needs are met? If we're feeding people and we're housing people, how are you going to get them desperate enough to rent themselves out by the day?
That's the idea between about a voluntary association. What are like the principles that you're hanging your hat on? And if you have like a society that's meeting people's basic needs through voluntary association, then these coercive institutions can't really even take hold. Right. So you don't have to worry about them. So it becomes a moot point whether you even care about capitalism.
Well, right, and I mean, part of the point for me there is that, I mean, what you've got is like competition among cooperative arrangements. Because if we're taking care of people over here, then we're going to outcompete your system where you're not taking care of people.
And I guess so the idea to like work towards there and stuff is to try to find the coercion in the system and eliminate that.
Exactly.
Which it seems sort of simple when you talk about it like that. It's just to articulate that in a translatable way, like communicate that in a simple way.
No?
One of those guys with the signature board. That's right. Talked about that, except the big phone man. Oh, really?
Wouldn't be me. No, we haven't.
I'll do it for.
We have a lot of events here. People do,
You do?
events. Yeah, we have like
The Beatles one recently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
last weekend. Yeah. So
An open mic sometime, right? Or no?
sometimes we have different events that are sometimes sponsored by other people. We have open